After speedrunning 50 imaginary high school lives and collecting a harem of over 100 virtual boyfriends like Pokemon cards, Tomoko Kuroki is convinced she's ready to dominate her real-life freshman year. Spoiler alert, she's about as prepared as a cat for algebra. In truth, Tomoko is an introverted, socially awkward disaster, blissfully unaware that the biggest thing holding her back is, well, herself. The scene opens with Tomoko sitting alone in her dimly lit room, searching online for the meaning of mojo, which she interprets as an unpopular girl. As she reads the definition, she realizes she fits the description perfectly. But instead of accepting it, she clings to the belief that she's actually popular. After all, during her 3 years of middle school, 6 guys spoke to her. Sure, one asked about the next class, another picked up her dropped eraser, and a third shared a textbook with her. But she was too nervous to hold a real conversation. Still, she counts these as her victories. Tomoko's delusions of grandeur lead her to imagine high school will be like a dating sim, with boys flocking to her without effort. After all, she's already dated hundreds of virtual boys in video games. Why shouldn't it work in real life? Fast forward to May and Tomoko is eating lunch alone, reading a book. She feels increasingly isolated as she watches other girls laughing and talking with boys, mentally labeling them as boy crazy, while she remains the superior loner. She daydreams about excelling in midterms and becoming popular, only to snap out of it and find herself completely alone. Passing a group of classmates planning to study together, she imagines bizarre scenarios like terrorists or aliens invading the school to avoid facing her social failure. When she sees a teacher, she stammers a weak goodbye and runs off. At home, Tomoko wonders when she was last spoken to. Her mom offers to bring her something from the store, but Tomoko spirals further into loneliness. She tries to connect through a video game where she rubs a guy's back, but it only frustrates her. Desperate to change her life, she starts dressing like the cute students, but her efforts are a disaster. This leads her to ask the question, am I cute? She assesses herself, feeling small and unattractive, but concludes maybe she could at least catch the attention of pedophiles, a sad attempt to find self-worth. In a comical montage, Tomoko tries even harder to make herself cute, with results so cringeworthy that her brother Tomoki almost collapses in shock. Later, she asks him to engage in a conversation to help improve her social skills, but his annoyance grows. Her desperation escalates as she fantasizes about ending it all, but she settles on a plan. Tomoki must talk with her for an hour each day until she gets a boyfriend. He agrees reluctantly, and she eagerly asks, am I cute? His unimpressed answer of normal leaves her questioning what normal even means. The day continues with awkward encounters like being ignored at karaoke and fumbling through a conversation with a cute shopkeeper. At a bookstore, she panics, imagining her classmates noticing how lonely she is. She tries to freshen up in the bathroom, hoping to look cuter, but no one recognizes her, except for Tomoki, who brushes her off. Feeling invisible, Tomoko resigns herself to her fate. That evening, Tomoko's brother finds her in the park and, with rare empathy, convinces her to go home. As they walk away, Tomoko feels, once again, like a failure. Tomoko is enjoying the latest track from her Yandere Boys verbal abuse CD when she gets a call from her old friend Yunaruse. Yu, who hasn't spoken to her in years, suggests they meet up next Sunday. Tomoko agrees but immediately begins dreading the inevitable conversation about her boring high school life. She pulls out her middle school yearbook, reminiscing about Yu, her plain and geeky friend. The thought of catching up only makes Tomoko cringe, especially as she knows she'll have to lie about her fulfilling high school experience. The next morning, Tomoki watches in disgust as Tomoko devours a massive breakfast, preparing herself for a day of high school accomplishments. She fantasizes about making her life sound exciting to Yu, imagining it as a triumphant anime scene, only to promptly puke on her way to school. In class, Tomoko realizes the only thing she's achieved is mastering the art of pretending to sleep until the teacher arrives. She feels ravenous from her morning ordeal, but wonders how her classmates would react if she started eating lunch early. She daydreams of being complimented by classmates Hinanamoto and Akane Okada for her anime-style cute eating habits. No one notices, though, so she tries to pretend that she's the model student. During English class, one unnamed boy notices the smell of her lunch and comments to another, making Tomoko bury herself further in her book to avoid the humiliation. In art class, the realization hits her that this lesson will involve pairing up with a partner, and she imagines the horror of no one wanting to work with her. So she skips class, claiming to feel sick, and retreats to the nurse's office, where she fantasizes about sleeping with a guy. Later, as Tomoko walks home, she imagines a conversation between a couple discussing their plans to go to his house. Tomoko, of course, envisions them breaking up over the inevitable awkwardness. When she briefly glimpses the girl's panties, she immediately protests in her mind, insisting she isn't a pervert, just curious. 4 days later, Tomoko is still planning how to impress Yu with her list of accomplishments, including her non-existent romantic experiences, when she overhears classmates talking about a boy with a girlfriend. Consumed with jealousy, she daydreams about male anime heroes surrounding her in sexual fantasies, until reality snaps her back when a boy accidentally bumps her desk into her stomach. Tomoko, still clinging to her delusions, vows never to lose her virginity. At the faculty office, Tomoko's art teacher reprimands her for skipping class, leading her to imagine an absurd fantasy of dating an obese boy and riding his barely functional bike. After school, she finds herself paired with this boy for a portrait assignment. She quickly finishes her drawing based solely on memory, but when she sees his sketch, she's surprisingly impressed. The following day, Tomoko meets Yu, who has dramatically changed since middle school. Her hair is bleached and she's wearing contacts. Tomoko, in awe of her transformed friend, immediately feels inferior. They bond over their shared love of anime, with Yu confessing her frustration over her recent fight with her boyfriend. Tomoko, in an unexpected moment of sincerity, tries to comfort Yu, but ultimately she retreats into her headphones, tuning out Yu's babbling as she listens to the Yandere boy's obsessive declarations. The rainy season starts and Tomoko overhears classmates complaining about their bad hair days as they battle the wet weather. One girl panics when her hair frizzes up in front of a guy she likes. Meanwhile, Tomoko, oblivious to the chaos atop her head, wonders what all the fuss is about, completely unaware her hair is sticking up like a bird's nest. In class, Tomoko realizes she forgot her textbook and briefly considers skipping, but the teacher arrives right on time. Fantasizing about being invisible, she imagines herself as the stealth Moko, only to be immediately noticed and scolded by the teacher. Her classmate offers to share his textbook and Tomoko sinks deeper into embarrassment. Later, Tomoko heads to her locker, already irritated by the day. She can't find her umbrella and rants about the thief who stole it, until she remembers she left it on the other side. On the way home, distracted by the surging river beneath a bridge, an adult man grabs her, yelling at her for being reckless. After a tearful apology, she walks on, only for the wind to blow her umbrella away. Seeking shelter under a park kiosk, she's joined by two male classmates. She panics about appearing rude and, in her awkwardness, makes one boy think she's ignoring him. The other concludes she's just a quiet girl. Tomoko insists she's not ignoring them but only stammers more, making things worse. She tries to joke about sweating like a character from a basketball manga, but they don't get it. Overcome with embarrassment, she begins to cry. When one of the boys asks if she's leaving despite the rain, she panics and blurts out that she needs to take a really messy poop, which leads to awkward silence. She then claims she has to pee and bolts to the bathroom, horrified by her failure. In the restroom, Tomoko reflects on her miserable day, only to return to the kiosk and find the boys have left. However, they kindly left her an umbrella. She debates stealing it but decides to use it, hoping that maybe a boy would be nice to her just once. At home, after a bath, Tomoki returns, soaking wet, and Tomoko seethes with jealousy that he gets to stay home while she's stuck at school. The next day, during PE, she's the last pick for basketball, feeling like the invisible sixth man from Kuroko's basketball. She overhears a psychology test discussion, secretly choosing the forest option, which indicates her celibacy. Depressed, she spends the period fantasizing about being an anime assassin, until a basketball hits her in the head. Later, Tomoko fakes being sick to skip school and plays video games. She invades Tomoki's room, trying to pretend she cares for him. When her mom brings fruit to Tomoki, Tomoko hides her game and pretends to be concerned. She later vents her jealousy when two of Tomoki's classmates visit him. She ends up serving Tomoki his porridge by spooning it onto his sleeping face, causing him to kick her in frustration. At 2 a.m., Tomoko continues her caregiver duties by placing a cold towel on Tomoki's head, but messes it up. The next morning, realizing she might have caught his cold, she asks him to care for her, but he shuts her down. Her day gets worse when she receives a text from Yu, revealing she would have chosen the forest option on the psychology test, hinting that she's not a virgin. Late at night, Tomoko finds herself mindlessly surfing the web at 2:17 a.m. In a desperate attempt to do something productive, she clicks on a random article about how to have an erotic dream. The instructions are simple. Sleep on your stomach, cover your head with a pillow, and deprive your brain of oxygen. Sure, why not? Tomoko follows the advice and she falls into a bizarre dream where everything is in kanji, clouds and flowers replaced by symbols. Then the dream takes a dark turn as happy music clashes and she's surrounded by bugs. She wakes up screaming, realizing that an erotic dream turned into a nightmare of insect horror. By 4:14 a.m., Tomoko is back at it, stuffing an emoji pillow under her shirt to try again. This time, she wakes up gasping for air, only to dream of a stuffed gorilla on the train. Her frustration grows as the dream devolves into more bizarre visions, including a toy alligator and, of course, more bugs. She's covered in sweat, holding onto the pillow like a lifeline, but eventually bangs it against the wall, realizing that trying to force dreams isn't working. The next day, Tomoko barely survives a quiz, looking so blissful that her teacher wonders what's going on in her head. During lunch, she overhears Akane Okada and her friends talking about being molested on the train. Tomoko is skeptical, thinking they're just trying to seem more appealing. She can't believe anyone would molest her, seeing herself as plain and unremarkable. To get to the bottom of this, she calls her friend Yu and awkwardly lies, claiming she was molested. Yu reassures her that it's safer in groups, but as usual, Tomoko's insecurities are only deepened by the conversation. She wonders if being a cute girl is the key to avoiding molestation. On her train ride, Tomoko rationalizes that she's never had an incident, but suddenly she's crushed in a crowd and something grabs her in the nether regions. For a moment, she panics, thinking it's her worst nightmare come true. When she escapes, she realizes it's just a girl's imaginata tangled in her. Disappointed, she calls Yu to share her story, but Yu is just confused. The next obsession, underwear. Tomoko is determined to buy cute panties to defeat the popular girls at school. She goes shopping with Yu, feeling both excited and embarrassed by the sheer variety of women's underwear. Tomoko fantasizes about her anime boyfriend, while Yu looks on bewildered. At home, Tomoko inspects her new panties like they're a treasure. The day goes downhill when she accidentally grabs them as a handkerchief at school and a boy notices. Panicking, Tomoko locks herself in the bathroom to dispose of the evidence. Later, Tomoko buys a BL game to distract herself, though she's not into it. When she wins a personal massager, she wonders what people will think if they see her with both a BL game and a massager. She uses the massager on her neck while falling asleep, only for her father to find her later, peacefully resting with the massager still running. Instead of freaking out, he calmly turns it off, carries her to bed, and leaves. Tomoko watches a romantic anime while eating Pocky sticks, and as they break, she has an existential crisis about being unpopular after 3 months of high school. Flashing back to her search for the meaning of mojo, unpopular girl, she convinces herself that there's still hope. She just needs the right setting to become popular, like the emotionless anime characters she admires. Clutching 3 more Pocky sticks, she vows to become silent and expressionless, convinced it's the key to her transformation. At home, Tomoko is the picture of robotic detachment, eating natto while ignoring her mother's cheerful attempts at conversation. When her brother Tomoki demands an apology for his missing sports drink, she responds in the same emotionless tone, making him lose his temper. Later, Tomoko curses the fingerprint marks on her cheek and plans to blackmail him by sneaking into his room. She reaffirms her goal to stay emotionless. In class, while her classmates excitedly study protozoa, Tomoko remains invisible, gray, silent, and unnoticed. During PE, she stands alone as the other students pair up for tennis. She's practically a human wallflower, convinced that silence will lead her to popularity. But as the day goes on, her gray persona starts to crack, and she realizes that silent characters only succeed in anime if someone interacts with them. The realization hits her hard, and she trembles, shedding a tear. Walking home, Tomoko clings to the idea of being emotionless, but when she passes a cafe she visited with Yu, things go terribly wrong. She orders a giant cappuccino, confusing it with grande. After overloading the drink with sweeteners and syrups, it becomes a sugary disaster. Frustrated, she tries to leave but misjudges the chair height, crashing to the floor. The cute barista rushes to help, and Tomoko, now crying in frustration, realizes how far she's from being the emotionless anime character she wants to be. Back in class, Tomoko reflects on how emotionless characters only work if someone tries to connect with them. She watches her classmates gush over Purikura photos and Suzuki's compliment of their cuteness. She realizes that a simple smile seems to make boys swoon, so she decides to reinvent herself as a girl with many expressions and a cute smile. Unfortunately, things don't go as planned. Yu is busy for days, and Tomoko's offer to her brother of a sports drink for a Purikura session is rejected. She ends up sneaking into an arcade Purikura booth, struggling to follow the cute photo poses and wasting 400 yen on disappointing results. At home, Tomoki discovers his room covered in Purikura stickers, sending him into a rage. The next day, Tomoko, feeling defeated, sighs while watching a cheerful weather girl on TV, realizing nothing has changed. Desperate for reinvention, she watches an interview with a cabaret girl who claims she overcame her shyness by becoming a hostess. Inspired, Tomoko decides to be an honor student by day and a lovely butterfly of the night after school. She buys a cigarette lighter and practices lighting cigarettes to prepare for her new lifestyle. But when she tries to impress men in the park, it's a complete failure. At home, Tomoko mixes drinks for Tomoki, adding ice to his coffee like she's a professional mixologist. Feeling smug, she convinces herself she's mastering these adult skills. Later, she ventures to Kabukiko to apply for a hostess job, but quickly panics after encountering street recruiters and porn peddlers. Terrified, she flees, realizing the adult world is even weirder than she imagined. Tomoko spends her evening obsessively finishing the Planetary Prince Otome game and then insists on discussing it with her brother, Tomoki. As she babbles on about fate, Tomoki can only wonder if she's truly this clueless. The next morning, Tomoko sits down for breakfast and her mother notes her unusually high spirits. In class, a blackboard announces that summer break is just 5 days away. As Tomoko walks past Akane, Hina, and others, she overhears them discussing their break plans, beach trips, camping, etc. Tomoko dismisses them as clueless about true love and hears Suzuki mention fireworks followed by karaoke. She feels these plans are beyond her. Later, Tomoko reflects on last year's fireworks with you. Now she knows you will be with her boyfriend. She checks her reflection and is briefly stunned by how gorgeous she looks without dark circles under her eyes. When two girls enter to do their makeup, Tomoko flees, cursing them for their skill. The girls talk about how a friend named Miho must have a boyfriend because she's suddenly cuter. Tomoko instantly believes she's cracked the code. She needs a boyfriend to get cute. In a convenience store, Tomoko picks up a magazine that claims sex makes you shine all over. She laughs it off but can't shake the thought. As she imagines herself as an anime heroine, it hits her. Sex. Watching two cats play outside, Tomoko clutches the magazine like it holds the secrets to life. With her new revelation, Tomoko dives into her Otome games, imagining herself as a voluptuous bombshell who makes anime characters jealous. She's sure someone will invite her to the fireworks soon. The next morning, Tomoki notices Tomoko's oily face and hair, questioning how she can look so filthy before noon. Tomoko misinterprets his disgusted stare as attraction. She buys a black cola drink, believing it will boost her feminine hormones and bring maximum luck, but the can explodes in her face. In PE, Tomoko sits alone, playing with ants, embodying high school social success. When an ant crawls up her leg, she freaks out, but when a boy notices an ant on her shoulder, she gets overly excited by his touch. In English class, another boy tries to point out an ant on her arm, but Tomoko, lost in her fantasies, misses it. On a train home, Tomoko sits next to a boy who texts about the cute high school girl sitting next to him. When the girl leaves, the boy texts that the cute girl ran off. Tomoko, imagining herself the center of attention, celebrates by buying another cola, shaking it, and letting it explode in her face like a bizarre ritual. As summer break nears, Tomoko realizes she has no one to watch the fireworks with. She walks through school, feeling increasingly isolated as she watches couples. Desperate, she runs to the library to find someone to join her, but after a few awkward missteps, she pretends to get a phone call about missing the fireworks. By the time she notices, the guy has left. On her way home, Tomoko finds herself at the roof where she watched fireworks with you the year before. Two middle school boys occupy the space, and after some hesitation, Tomoko asks if she can join them. They agree, and Tomoko feels a tear of relief. As they watch fireworks, Tomoko's gaze shifts to a love hotel next door, where the boys are distracted by a couple's fireworks. Tomoko laughs awkwardly, realizing she just wanted to enjoy the fireworks with someone. As the fireworks explode, she exclaims, "You don't see that in girl games." After 5 days of doing absolutely nothing, Tomoko overhears laughter from her brother's room and resorts to eavesdropping through the wall. She compares the sound of a dying higurashi cricket to her own pathetic life, marking the 6th wasted day of her summer. By night, she finally realizes she's wasting her entire vacation. She cries loudly enough to wake her brother, who bangs on the wall and demands she shut up. On the 7th day, Tomoko resolves to make the most of her break, but by 5:02 a.m., she's deep into internet rabbit holes instead of being productive. By 9:32 a.m., she's sidetracked by a sexy video on MyTube, clearly avoiding anything resembling a fulfilling summer. By midnight on the 8th day, Tomoko's still glued to her screen, caught in a loop of browsing and daydreaming. She decides to buy a webcam in hopes of becoming an internet sensation. The camera arrives and Tomoko imagines herself as a glamorous webcam idol. But unsurprisingly, reality doesn't meet her delusional expectations. At 6:09 p.m., Tomoki walks in on Tomoko wearing sunglasses and a surgical mask. He sighs and retreats, clearly not surprised. The higurashi cricket's wing stares back in silent homage to Tomoko's life. Finally, she goes live on her webcam, but her viewers quickly point out that she's doing nothing. She shuts down the browser and curls up in bed, another day of failed ambition. The next day, Tomoko finds an ad offering a chance to meet her favorite Otome game's voice actor, Jun Ishimin. She feels excited about the idea but spends the rest of the day researching urban legends instead of preparing her request. By 3:00 a.m., she's too scared to leave her room to use the bathroom, almost resorting to a sports drink bottle. After some panic, she coerces Tomoki into accompanying her, threatening him with her feminine charm, and he reluctantly agrees. On the 9th day, Tomoko waits in line to meet June. She overhears a girl talking about how she stayed up all night thinking of lines for him, making Tomoko feel even more ridiculous for being unprepared. When it's her turn, Tomoko hesitates before asking Jun to record a combination of dramatic lines. Jun, ever the professional, humors her, much to the exasperation of the girls behind her. At 3:03 p.m., Tomoko listens to the recording obsessively, imagining Jun's voice echoing in her head. She contemplates mixing his recording with her game's voice files, but instead stares at the webcam, wondering if she could become an internet sensation after all. At 5:05 p.m., Tomoki returns home to find a strange video of Tomoko and himself from childhood. His disbelief and horror grow as he watches himself proclaim his love for Tomoko and request a kiss. Meanwhile, Tomoko, oblivious to the danger, continues editing her fan-made Jun compilation. Her mother casually walks in, hears the increasingly risky audio, and tells Tomoko to join her for dinner without reacting. Tomoko realizes her mistake when she discovers her headphones weren't plugged in, meaning the entire audio was broadcast on speakers. Her mom walks out, unfazed. Later that night, Tomoko tries to bond with her brother by inviting him to set off fireworks. He reluctantly agrees, and she lights sparklers outside his window while he watches, probably still questioning every decision that led him to be her sibling. Tomoko is eating breakfast when her mother reminds her that her cousin Ki is coming for her annual summer visit and asks her to clean her room. This triggers a flashback to last year when Tomoko bragged to Ki about having a boyfriend, a high schooler she met at cram school. She exaggerated, claiming he just wanted to fool around, but she was holding off until high school. Now Tomoko regrets the lie, realizing that Ki, a middle schooler, will easily see through her story. She imagines Ki figuring out that she's doing it every day with her imaginary boyfriend. Desperate to save face, Tomoko decides to act like a high school bitch to impress Ki. Ki eagerly asks her mom when they'll arrive, excited for Tomoko's stories. Meanwhile, Tomoko plans to get advice from her best friend Yu, but Yu is too busy going to the beach with her friends. Tomoko pretends she's also busy and scoffs at the beach, calling it a gathering of perverts showing skin in public, all while imagining Yu frolicking with them. Tomoko heads to a clothing store to buy bitch-like clothes but feels intimidated by the fashionable younger girls. She follows their lead but still feels something is off. In desperation, she gives herself a hickey and then uses a vacuum cleaner to create more on her neck. Her mother walks in, horrified, and Tomoko tries to explain, but her mother's disgust is met with a classic slap. When Ki arrives, Tomoko, now sporting a red handprint from the slap, nervously explains the marks as hickeys, but Ki isn't fooled. Ki thanks Tomoko for taking her to the library to do homework. Tomoko, sitting in the lobby, stresses about the fake boyfriend stories she needs to fabricate. Enter Kosaka, a guy Tomoko met during a rainstorm last year. Overwhelmed by the possibility he's hitting on her, Tomoko imagines him as her anime hero, but when he leaves, she snaps back to reality. Back home, Ki asks about the boy Tomoko talked to in the library. Tomoko lies, claiming he's her boyfriend. Ki, thrilled, asks for details, including whether he was the one fooling around with her. Panicked, Tomoko changes the subject to Ki's homework. The next day, Tomoko's world crumbles when she sees Kosaka with another girl. He asks if she's okay with it, and Tomoko, in a rare moment of honesty, claims they have an open relationship. Later, in the library bathroom, she rationalizes that if Kosaka has a girlfriend, she can just be his friend. Ki confronts Kosaka, telling him it's wrong to be with another girl if he's dating Tomoko. Kosaka is confused, and Tomoko intervenes, telling Ki to step aside. In a final attempt to salvage the situation, Tomoko dramatically performs a dojeza, a deep bow, in front of Kosaka, thinking it will fix everything. Ki watches concerned. Tomoko pretends to have dumped him, but Ki isn't buying it. Later, Tomoko takes Ki to the Tanaka shop, trying to impress her by claiming she's the queen of a kid's card game. After cheating to win, Tomoko assumes she's cool, but Ki seems embarrassed. However, she admits that Tomoko is cute, which warms Tomoko's heart. As Ki leaves, she promises to visit Tomoko again. Tomoko wonders if Ki now sees her as someone worth respecting, but as she watches TV later, she questions whether Ki still sees her as a puppy-eyed idol or someone with potential. Tomoko sits alone at night, staring at her calendar, lamenting that she has only 10 days left of summer break. She plans to meet Yu the next day, but a call from Yu throws her off. Yu apologizes for canceling their movie date, and Tomoko panics, fearing that Yu is abandoning her because of her previous awkward requests, like asking about Yu's underwear or sending a dirty mind test picture. She spirals into self-doubt, thinking she's about to be dumped. After an awkward silence, Yu explains that she has to help at her uncle's cafe due to illness and offers to treat Tomoko to cake the next day. Tomoko agrees to visit in 2 days, leaving her with a day to waste playing games. The next day, Tomoko visits the cafe and immediately feels out of place among the couples. Yu greets her in a cute uniform, making Tomoko self-conscious. She orders something random, dazzled by the French names of the pastries. As Yu works, Tomoko feels bitter about her lazy day while Yu works in a tendy place. She reflects that Yu is the type of girl guys love, and Tomoko wonders if she needs to change herself. Back home, Tomoko asks her mother about cake-making jobs, hoping to work part-time. Her mother mentions a friend who makes cakes. Tomoko fantasizes about being a glamorous hostess in an anime scene where she spills a drink on a hot guy and gets to clean him up. Reality hits when she ends up working at a cake factory, wearing a mask and working on a conveyor belt. Her co-workers smoke during breaks, while Tomoko listens to sad music, pondering her life. Later, Tomoko complains to her mother about the cake factory job. Her mom reminds her that she quit after one day and points out that she spends her time lazing around. Tomoko grudgingly cleans the bath and is asked to clean the windows. She tries to pass the task to her brother, Tomoki, but her mother shoots her down, reminding her that Tomoki has entrance exams. Tomoko is crushed by her mother's criticism and, in a heated moment, gets smacked. Tomoko flees to Tomoki's room, frustrated that he cleans and cooks, making her look lazy. Her mother appears again with a dark anime aura, and Tomoko gets smacked once more. She sulks in a storage room, where her mother criticizes her for not cleaning her own room. Tomoko's self-pity grows as she throws away childhood toys until she finds a box of summer trinkets with cicada shells. She recalls collecting them with Tomoki as kids but tosses them aside. Tomoko finds Tomoki's childhood diary, where he writes that he loves her because she's nice and always plays with him. She tries to find him but learns he's out watching a meteor shower with his friends. After dinner, Tomoko sulks in her room until the TV announces the meteor shower will be visible at 10 p.m. She heads to a convenience store for instant ramen and sits on a bench, staring at the sky. As the meteor shower begins, she wishes for a boy to watch with her, knowing the wish will never come true. Suddenly, a cat appears behind her. She gives it some snacks, and as it rubs against her legs, she gets excited, until she realizes it's a male cat. Tomoki comes home and finds the molted skin of a higurashi on his desk, confused by its meaning. Tomoko walks out of her house, declaring that the new school term marks the beginning of something important, as everything until now has been mere preparation. Her confidence quickly fades when she realizes the seating arrangement has changed. She ends up sitting behind Yoshinori Kyoto with Akane Okada and Suzuki near her. Suzuki awkwardly introduces himself, and Tomoko stammers as her classmates watch with smiles. Kyoto apologizes for Suzuki's behavior, and Tomoko, overwhelmed, mentally rants about being stuck in this seat for the entire term. Reflecting on her first term, Tomoko remembers how she sat alone by the window, lost in weird websites on her phone. She daydreams about a dramatic scene where the teacher announces a deathmatch, a back to reality. She imagines taking a sickle to Kyoto in frustration. At lunch, Tomoko decides not to eat with others, feeling out of place. She considers the bathroom but dismisses it as too loserish, then tries the roof only to find it locked. She ends up eating alone among abandoned desks. After playing games on her phone, she rushes back to class when it's time. The next day, Tomoko continues to isolate herself, pretending to sleep at her desk to avoid her classmates. As time passes, she sinks deeper into her misery. One day, she discovers her desk has been moved to the entrance, and, depressed, she sits on the stairs in defeat. In PE, Tomoko watches her classmates play basketball, but her stomach growls and she collapses from hunger. The nurse explains to the teacher that she's just a little anemic. Tomoko apologizes and returns to class, only to find her desk has been moved again. She kicks it in frustration but catches it before it topples over. After school, Tomoko watches a boyfriend fail to win a stuffed toy for his girlfriend at an arcade. Internally scoffing, she decides to try her luck. She succeeds in grabbing the toy and carries it home, but she realizes the toy only makes her feel more alone. The next day, Tomoko's teacher announces that her class is the only one without a cultural festival project. Her classmates eagerly discuss ideas, but Tomoko silently hopes they won't choose a haunted house, recalling her dreadful middle school experiences. She fantasizes about joining a club, imagining herself as a respected member who occasionally makes tea and plays card games. Reality shatters when she realizes she's still alone. Determined to change things, Tomoko snatches a club proposal form and spends the night brainstorming. She submits a proposal for the Daily Life Club, a club for enjoying life and doing fun things every day. A few weeks later, she's part of the club, but her fantasy is interrupted when her mother demands she join her for dinner, revealing that Tomoko has been having tea with her stuffed animals. Her mom scolds her for ignoring her calls. The next day, Tomoko learns that her club proposal was rejected for being too vague. In a fit of despair, she mentally transforms into a cubist form as the crushing reality sets in. As preparations for the Firefly Light Festival begin, various students including Kyoto, Suzuki, Akane, and Hina work happily, while Tomoko sulks off to the side, muttering she just wants to go home. Hina, cheerfully coloring posters for the class's cosplay cafe, is teased by some boys about her popularity. Tomoko, seething with jealousy, reluctantly offers to help. Okada and Omatsu, doubtful of her ability to contribute, look concerned. Tomoko tries to drag out the task of cutting flyers, but the boys quickly ruin her plan by cutting them in bulk, forcing her to work. Distracted by the made costumes for the cafe, Tomoko imagines herself wearing one but accidentally cuts herself. Panicking, she rushes to the nurse's office, colliding with Megumi and spilling blood on her forms. After profuse apologies, Tomoko is escorted to the nurse's office. Megumi, the cultural festival chair, reveals she's organizing the cosplay cafe. Tomoko awkwardly thanks her but retreats into her fantasy of joining the light music club, only to imagine herself as the lonely outcast, sulking and feeling defeated. At lunch, Tomoko hears the announcement for students to help set up chairs and wonders why she's doing this instead of helping with the cafe. At the setup, Megumi thanks her for showing up, even with her bandaged hand, and encourages her to have fun in the festival. Tomoko smiles but feels deflated when she returns to class and finds the work already done. She passes the maid uniforms, staring at them longingly. On her way home, Tomoko buys a maid cosplay costume and, eager to impress, sends a picture to Yu, claiming she'll be a cosplay maid at the festival. Yu calls immediately, and Tomoko excitedly talks about all the work she's done, only for Yu to announce she'll visit. Panicking, Tomoko scrambles for excuses to delay Yu's visit, but Yu insists on coming anyway. Tomoko reluctantly repeats her vow to have fun. At the festival, Tomoko remains unnoticed, observing the hustle around her. A cute guide offers her takoyaki, but she dismisses it, thinking it's inferior to the Yokado stores. She attends performances but feels out of place and regrets missing her chance to slip away. After vomiting in the bathroom, she sits on the stairs exhausted. Megumi notices her and asks if she's taking a break, but Tomoko runs off, claiming she has nothing to do. Back home, Tomoko brags to Yu about the fun she had, but inwardly fears being exposed as unpopular. She fantasizes about Yu walking through school, making everyone jealous. The next day, Tomoko eagerly awaits Yu's arrival, nervous but hopeful. When Yu arrives, she hugs Tomoko, overwhelming her with affection. Tomoko almost tries to grab Yu's behind, but stops when Yu pulls away. They wander the school, and Tomoko enjoys the time with her only friend. They visit the haunted house, where Tomoko grows frustrated by how unscared Yu is. After running off to find another excuse, Tomoko returns with treats, but Yu insists on buying her some takoyaki. They sit outside enjoying snacks while Yu talks about an anime Tomoko recommended. For the first time, Tomoko realizes she's actually having fun. As the festival winds down, Tomoko walks alone, her spirits lifted with a balloon from the mascot. Megumi, still in costume, offers a hug, and Tomoko smiles as the mascot prances away. Back home, Tomoko looks at the balloon and sighs, muttering, well, whatever, accepting her small victory in solitude. After the festival, Tomoko reflects on her high school experience and realizes nothing has changed. As she leaves school, her homeroom teacher wishes her a safe trip home. Tomoko stammers a goodbye but manages a small smile as she walks away. Walking home, she feels stuck in her usual routine. A leaf falls at her feet, reminding her that winter is coming. Back in her room, Tomoko lies on her bed, clutching her purple stuffed toy in the fading sunlight. She reminisces about her high school fantasies, dreams of fun days like going to an amusement park with classmates. In her fantasy, she's the leader, admired by two friends. But the fantasy turns dark as they disappear in black wisps, and Tomoko finds herself alone. She daydreams further, imagining her high school life filmed like an old movie, with girls complimenting her perfume, though she doesn't wear any. The scene quickly shifts when the girls vanish and two boys pass by, complaining about the smell of grandfather's house, leading Tomoko to a gravestone marked Moko. Overcome with sadness, she hugs her toy, wishing for more fun things. The fantasy continues in a vintage granny style, with Tomoko and her imaginary friends taking Purikura photos. The pictures turn out to be the awful ones she took earlier, and she screams in frustration. Realizing how little she's achieved, she tosses her toy away and resolves to change her present. Determined, she starts her homework, including a questionnaire about her future. She calls Yu for advice, who cheerfully admits she hasn't figured out her own future yet. Yu jokingly reminds Tomoko of her old dream of becoming an arms merchant. Tomoko, mortified, tries to block out her past ambitions, which always resurface to haunt her. Later, Tomoko talks to her brother Tomoki, who suggests she quit trying to change things. They joke cartoonishly, but Tomoko sarcastically invites him to talk if he needs help. Before leaving, she thanks him dramatically, but Tomoki wonders who she really is. At school the next day, Tomoko watches Megumi talking to students and realizes she has the popularity Tomoko desires. Tomoko follows her, observing how easily Megumi solves problems, imagining herself as confident and admired. After the break, Tomoko sneaks into the bathroom to listen to her classmates' conversations about her. All she hears are survey answers, and in her mind, she imagines herself as a forgotten ghost, like a character from another. During class, Tomoko seizes an opportunity to become a hero when a cockroach appears, but instead of praise, her classmates suggest she clean her slipper. Later, she hears more about Megumi's popularity and wonders if she can learn to be like her. Tomoko follows Megumi, but freezes when a gust of wind lifts her skirt. Unable to speak, she runs away. Two classmates comment that Tomoko is kind of cute, but Megumi watches her, adding to Tomoko's self-loathing.